Greetings and welcome back to this next installment of Bible Topics that make you say, hmm. And I'm Robin Sweet Ransom. Okay, so thanks for hanging in there. We're going to cover our final installment of Samson, a lesson on indulgence, strength, and passion. Now, for some of you, it's just a history lesson. For others of you, you may be dealing with something similar to Samson, having a call on your life and you're finding it very hard to truly submit totally to God's will and not keep falling into sin or what have you. So, if this is you, be encouraged. There is definitely hope for you to be more consistent in your worship so that you don't feel like you're being reckless. All right, let's go to Judges chapter 16, verses 4 through 9. Here's the part of the story that most of you are familiar with. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman named Delilah. And I have a little cousin. She's 3. Her name is Delilah, but her parents spell her name a little differently. And she lived in Sorek Valley. The Philistine leaders went to her and said, "Persuade Samson to tell you where his great strength comes from, so we can overpower him, tie him up, and make him helpless. Each of us will then give you 1,100 pieces of silver each." And it didn't say how many leaders came to her, but that's a lot of money. So what's she going to do? Now, by the way, didn't you grow up thinking that Delilah was a prostitute? I did too. The Bible doesn't call her a harlot or a prostitute, or as we call them, a sex worker today. But it does mention in a few verses, picking up at verse 1, that that Samson went down and spent the night and slept with a prostitute. Now, that's some research I did said didn't mean he actually had sex with her. It just meant that, when you were in a strange town and you didn't have anywhere to sleep, you would go to a prostitute's house and actually just sleep. Yeah, I don't know. So that did happen, but I don't know if that happened in Samson's case. Nevertheless, Delilah has a decision to make. Is she going to betray this man who was in love with her, or is the love of money stronger than whatever she felt between her and Samson? Verse 6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me, where does your great strength come from? How could someone tie you up and make you helpless?" So she made her decision. The money was where it's at. And if she is a prostitute, she's used to being paid for her services, and she's being paid heavily for services in this case without having to lie down or getting paid to lie down by somebody else, right? But that's not what she's trying to do right now. She wants to know the source of his strength, right? Because the Philistines can't understand why this one man keeps beating the heck out of us and killing us. They're tired of it. So Samson told her, "If they tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I will become weak and be like any other man." I find it interesting that she asked him, "How could someone tie you up?" So she's already got that on her mind. So the Philistine leaders brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him up with them. So obviously, this wasn't the same day. While the men were in ambush, were waiting in her room. So they were in a house and he didn't even know that they were in a house. She called out to him, "Samson, the Philistines are here." But he snapped the bowstrings as a strand of yarn snaps when it touches fire. The secret of his strength remained unknown. So what should he, at that point, he should have been done with Delilah. He told her what would make him weak, and she used it against him, and it didn't work. She set him up, and he still kept messing with this woman. Which head do you think he was thinking with? Mic drop. Verse 10. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have mocked me and told me lies. Won't you please tell me how you can be tied up? Why the hell you want to know?" Is what I would have asked her. He told her, If they tie me up with new ropes that have never been used, I will become weak and be like other men. Delilah took new ropes, tied him up with them, and shouted, Samson, the Philistines are here. But while the men in ambush were waiting in her room, he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, You have mocked me all along and told me lies. Tell me how you can be tied up. How many parts of stupid do you have to be? But it's not stupid, it's arrogance. This man has all this strength, and I believe he has forgotten who his true strength comes from. So he's playing with her, playing with them. Hell, he might have even seen the Philistines go into her house and hide. This is the second time, though. So if he didn't know the first time, he knows she's up to something now, and he still keeps going back and doing this. And then she wants to play the victim. He told her, if you weave the 7 braids, I'm in the latter part of verse 13. If you weave the 7 braids on my head with the web of a loom, so he always wore 7 braids, that's interesting. She fastened the braids with a pin and called to him, Samson, the Philistines are here. He awoke from his sleep and pulled out the pin with the loom and the web. How can you say I love you? She told him, when your heart is not with me. This is the third time, count them, 1, 2, 3 time you have mocked me and not told me what makes your strength so great. Because she nagged him day after day and pled with him until she wore him out, he told her the whole truth. See a connection here? With the woman he was attempting to marry before, she nagged him and nagged him to get the answer to a riddle so she could give to her betrayers, his betrayers, her people, though. And you see how that turned out. He gives in to nagging women. What's he going to do now? My hair has never been cut because I'm a Nazarite to God from birth. If I am shaved, my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. So did he believe this or did he not? She has proven to you not once, not twice, but 3 times that she cannot be trusted. If she ain't a harlot, she is definitely a liar and a betrayer. And you a fool to be messing with her. Like Solomon said, messing with these women that are like this is a trip. So don't you know she's going to cut your hair? When Delilah realized that he had told her the whole truth, she sent this message to the Philistine leaders. Come one more time, because they tired of being played a fool. And he didn't even kill them. So in this case, if he was doing these things to do stuff to the Philistines, how come he didn't kill these people who came out to harm him? For he has told me the whole truth. The Philistine leaders came to her and brought the money with them. Then she let him fall asleep on her lap and called a man to shave off the 7 braids on his head. And this way, she rendered him helpless, and his strength left him. Do you feel sorry for Samson? Now that you know that's this whole story, his indulgence, he shouldn't have been with a woman like this in the first place, but he's doing it anyway. He's in love with her. His arrogance and his strength and his passions all together, not a good mix. Verse 20. Then she cried, Samson, the Philistines are here. When he awoke from his sleep, he said, I will escape as I did before and shake myself free. There was a whip for this Toby, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Do you know whether or not the Lord has left you? And if you feel his presence is gone, what are you going to do to get it back? I don't ever want to feel that feeling. I've never felt like he's left me, but I have felt that I've disappointed him and that he was going to punish me. And he never gave me what I deserved. In fact, because I felt so bad and got together, he didn't need to do anything but just let me feel convicted. So be convicted, don't feel condemned. The difference is when you're condemned, you want to turn away from God. When you're convicted, you want to run to him and get help. 21. The Philistines seized him and did what? They gouged out his eyes. And you know that was painful. There was no anesthesia. They couldn't wait to do that to him after everything he'd been doing to them. They brought him down to Gaza. Oh my goodness. And Gaza's in war right now. They brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles, and he was forced to grind grain in the prison. But his hair began to grow back after he had been shaved. Now the Philistine leaders gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon. They rejoiced and said, "Our God has handed over our enemy Samson to us." When the people saw him, they praised their God and said, "Our God has handed over to us our enemy who destroyed our land and who multiplied our dead." When they were drunk, they said, "Bring Samson here to entertain us." You know, tap dancers. So they brought Samson from prison and he entertained them. I don't know what they want, or what he did. Maybe he did. I don't know what he did. They had him stand between pillars, but he got something for them, though. And of course, he had to be guided because he couldn't see. Samson said to the young man who was leading him by the hand, "Lead me where I can feel the pillars supporting the temple so I can lean against them." Maybe it was just entertainment seeing him blinded and to them helpless. I don't know. They would laugh and, "Look at that fool who used to give us such hell." "Do something now, Samson. Can you see me? Now you see me, now you don't. Oh, you still can't see me." I don't know what they did, but we're going to hear more about what Samson did. So he was able to put his hands on the pillars. And that goes back to the picture we saw at the beginning. This is a better one, shot. So this is what's going on here. He's blind in this picture, and his shackles are apart, and he's putting his hands on these pillars in this temple where they all were, celebrating and drinking. Verse 27, the temple was full of men and women. All the leaders of the Philistines were there, and about 3,000 men and women were on the roof watching Samson entertain them. So remember, the leaders were the ones who paid Delilah this money and all this jazz. And so all of them were together in one place. So this is what Samson did. He called out to the Lord, "Lord God, please remember me. I know I've been foolish. I've taken what you've given me for granted, really didn't use it for your glory. But strengthen me, God, just once more. With one act of vengeance, let me pay back the Philistines for my two eyes." And still he's thinking about himself. Not for your glory, God, but he's still thinking about himself. Verse 29, Samson took hold of the two middle pillars supporting the temple and leaned against them, one on his right and the other on his left. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." So he committed suicide. That same commentary said, "Oh, he didn't commit suicide. What else would you call it?" Okay, maybe you can call it war. When people die in war, you don't call it suicide. He pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the leaders and all the people in it, and the dead he killed at his death were far more than those he killed in his life. So remember, his strength was designed to kill Philistines, and he did just that. With his dying breath, he did just that. So Samson, a lesson on indulgence, strength, and passion. Samson took his strength for granted and it killed him. What about you? Are you taking whatever talents you have for granted? Samson's passions led to foolhardy decisions and actions. He fell in love with a woman who was stronger than he was. Yes, she was. She didn't have to raise her finger. And she got this man to bend at her will by nagging him. He underestimated the hatred the Philistines had for him. And Samson's indulgence, recklessness, and pride is what trapped him. That's what shackled him. If he had only had self-control, he could have killed even more Philistines. He forgot the true source of his strength was not his hair, it was Jehovah. He lost his eyes, but he found God again and avenged himself. So despite his sinful nature, he was favored by God, like us. And so on this picture here, we see the depiction, another depiction of Samson and Delilah. And then this is him right before he killed everybody, all blinded, being guided by someone. And now he's getting ready to wreak havoc. So again, self-control is the best strength that any of us can have. How are you doing in that area? Are you continuing to strengthen yourself? I am too. We're in the same boat. All right, join me next time on Bible topics that make you say, "Hmm." It'll be a surprise what I have for you next.